Good morning, Briat. Well, it's morning for me. Well,
Good
it's almost
afternoon
morning.
from my side. It's getting hot here.
So nice to see you. Nice to see you yet another day.
Yes, yes. Always a pleasure.
Today, I've there's a particular fellow that I listen to. It's a channeling, actually, Cryon. And I don't know how many years ago I heard this, but I thought it was really quite pertinent. Where Cryon was asking the question of the people that were listening is, in between your meditations. So the thought process is that your frequency raises when you're meditating. And the question was, in between your meditations, where does your energy naturally go and naturally fall to? Like most people, that's going to be from their meditation, their energy is going to fall, is going to be lower than at the peaks of their meditation. So I thought that was a really interesting question. It brings up a few things. Does it bring up anything for you just out of the chute?
Yeah, it does actually. Today, I was actually having a conversation with my wife to something related to this quite a bit. Because I've got quite a, I don't know what the word is, a fixed routine, especially with children. It's required a lot for um, order and sanity to be maintained. So I wake up early because both myself and my wife, we meditate 1.5 to 2 hours a day. And if we have to finish that in the morning, it's something we've committed to. If the children are awake, then you don't really have the opportunity that much anymore. So I wake up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning every day, and I do my meditation. And then I was having a conversation with my wife, and I was saying how I was reflecting on how I'm wasting time unnecessarily. Well, a waste of time is always unnecessary, but particularly with like little mundane things which don't actually bring any kind of it's not productive, like just scrolling through Facebook, or going to my email too frequently, or watching something on YouTube which is actually not so educational or helping the situation anyway. And I told her that in my reflections of that, what I realized is actually that there's a bit of a yearning inside me that is calling me to actually deepen my spiritual practice, and that I'm trying to fill up that with mundane kind of little mind distracting, like numbing out. Actually, that's what it is, to a certain degree, numbing out a little bit, and just like face smashing. And so when I realized this, just in my reflection, then that yearning of mine came through very strong, and I realized that there's a certain amount of lethargy that's in me that needs to be fought against, and that if I want to deepen my spiritual practice, it's going to require actual effort on my part, that I have to spend energy to actually make that progress. It's not just something that's going to happen automatically. Even though I'm waking up every morning before sunrise and meditating and stuff, it's like my spiritual master once said that in material life, when you start something, oftentimes it's difficult, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then after a while, you become so expert within it, you can close your eyes and you can do it. But with spiritual life, it's not the same. Is that whatever you're doing now, and that's enough for you now, whatever you're doing now that is enough spiritually, tomorrow that will not be enough to still derive from it enough enthusiasm and inspiration to keep on going. You have to put in more in your spiritual life to maintain the same. It's not like material life where you actually have to do less the better you get at it. In spiritual life, is the more advanced you become, the more you have to put in actually. And then there's no such thing as standing still. You're moving forward or you're moving back. You can't stand still.
Yeah.
But like they say, change is going to happen. So you just so I really appreciated that, and I was thinking, okay, I found a space in myself where I'm not putting this energy into, and I think very much during my meditations, just to bring it back to your question, is that I found that generally I'm quite engaged because I've, by our routine, managed to fill up most of my day with meaningful things, my services and like I'm teaching at the school here, so we're still continuing our classes. So every day I've got work to send out and work to assess that I'm receiving back from students. And then I'm doing podcasts with you, and I'm doing some other online meetings every day with another person. And so then and they're all service related, and they're also related to, they're connected to spiritual practice, all of it, even my teaching. I'm in a school which is based on, the children meditate every day and things like that. So we promote these things. But when I have the chance, it's like my mind, as soon as there's a little bit of space, my mind just looks at, goes to the lethargy, and there's like a bit of effort that is put in there. And then I indulge a little bit. And then at some point, I kind of get to see what I'm doing. And then I put myself out, and then I'm reestablished like in the place I want to be, on the higher frequency. And it goes like that, up and down. Between meditations, it's not like a down and a up, but it's like up and down, wobbly in between. With periods of me being where I want to be, where I was in my meditation, and periods where I slip, and then periods where I just put myself up because I just need to remember, okay, this is actually Maya. And then I get back in it. So it's like that.
So
for me.
The first thing I want to point to is that usually you're much busier in your day. This point where you have a lot more time and we're actually in our homes is, outside of your normal routine. So first looking at that, and because we have so much time, is this lethargy. What can you point to anything that occurs in between your meditations, which you're doing a lot of and very disciplined, that you're getting up at 3:30 in the morning to do so, 1 hour and a half meditation every day. When the lethargy starts coming in, is there any kind of, like when here's our meditation, high frequencies, is there anything that you're noticing before the lethargy happens? What is the difference between how you are in your meditation and what happens in between that and when the lethargy starts to show itself to you? What happened in between?
It's quite a good question. One obvious thing that usually happens is that I start thinking, what do I want? That's what I think. Which is not actually me thinking it, it's actually my senses pondering, what do I want now? What do I want to see? What do I want to hear? What do I want to eat, taste? What do I want to smell? What environment do I want to be in? It's like I'm thinking about what I want. I'm not thinking about what is needed right now. And what service is there for me to perform now? Like I'm not thinking that.
So for me is, after I'm done meditation and I open my eyes, I think the frequency changes for me immediately. As soon as I leave my inner world and I have a really kind of comfortable experience of myself and my connection to all that is, to creation. It's connected, it's aligning with me, it aligns me, and it's rejuvenating. And it's really a beautiful place to be. And the second that I open my eyes and, get up, and especially if I start having thoughts, because I work every day. So even if I walk 15 feet to my office, which is an incredibly beautiful place in a yoga studio, is that something shifts for me already. I'm already back to being Brian. I have a business, I have labels and a context that is, it's lower frequency. It's not, there's a gap between how I feel my day and who I am and what I need to do in it, and my beliefs about that. The Maya, or the illusion of that, is already a step down from my meditation. And then once I've actually, spent a little bit of time there, it's really easy for me to indulge in my everyday issues and frustrations, if there are any, like administration or things that aren't going the way I want them to, or any kind of bad news. Any of that stuff is, I will lower my frequency for that, maybe even further, maybe. And then then I'm starting to look for like the lethargy as, so there's a little bit of lethargy or a lower energy but also that, what am I going to do? There's some things that I do to placate myself to be able to feel better and to avoid the experience of the stuff that isn't working for me. And, to varying degrees, but I do notice that these things, there is definitely a lowering of the frequency from my meditation to this guy named Brian in the context of his humanness and my business and the people that I work with and how all that's supposed to work. Does that bring up anything for you?
Yeah, it does actually. I can understand like that kind of experience, although I don't personally experience much of that myself. I think it's a matter of connecting what you are doing to source and seeing it from a transcendental perspective. And that we're
Yes.
talking about dharma and things like that in previous podcasts, and that if you can see that like things through the perspective of that the purpose of life is a spiritual one, and that materially all that's actually required is just to sustain your body and your mind nicely so that you can use it to pursue your spiritual enlightenment or spiritual your self-realization. So you just need to just be able to maintain your body and mind. That's it. And then the rest of the energy you can spend for the real purpose. So then what you're doing is part of that. So that makes that spiritual. If you're using your vital energy for that purpose of self-realization, then it makes the maintenance of the body spiritual also. So then you climbing in the car and going to your job or whatever and dealing with these so-called material affairs becomes spiritual, because the purpose of that is to maintain your body so you can use your body for a spiritual purpose. So that makes the maintenance of it spiritual. It's not a means to an end. It's not just to survive, and then why you want to survive? I don't know. I just want to enjoy life. Then that's material. Then it's all mundane. But so you can.
So
you
the
can,
interesting thing,
yeah.
I like what you're saying there, and I think you've hit the nail on the head, is that even though I have a business because I want one and I need to sustain myself, so I'd rather do it in my business than somebody else's. And but you're absolutely right. As soon as I get into my business and creating my vision about how I think that it is about serving others. It is about giving a product to them that's healthy and good for them,
Yeah.
mind, body, and soul. But it's not. But there's so much of it that is not in service. There's so much of it that is about Brian trying to create something for Brian, as opposed to holding it at the deepest. Even though all of that's true and not going to change, having a higher calling and a higher expression of what's driving my actions is service to creation, and just doing my part for creation of at the highest levels, and having that be the filter that I'm looking through, as opposed to Brian's business and Brian's needs and Brian's etc. So I think that that's what you were saying, and I think that that's quite useful. So
yeah, and
I think that's something that you
even
adopted.
This is even addressed in the Bhagavad Gita when the Bhagavad Gita basically is about there's this massive battle going to happen. It's practically a family feud in a gigantic dynasty, which at the time, 5,000 years ago, were the emperors of the planet. And there was a division amongst them, a family feud. And just before they were about to commence, then Arjuna was looking on the people who are on either side of the battlefield. And he saw on both sides friends and families and his teachers and his elders and all of these people that he's now supposed to kill. And he told Krishna that he doesn't want to fight. He says, I can't do this. It's just going to cause, and he gave a list of reasons. And then, but he was a warrior. And as a warrior, his duty is to fight. And particularly that battle was a righteous battle. It was a battle fought to preserve this well-being spiritually and materially of human society. And so Krishna made the point. He said that one should follow one's prescribed duty And even if there is some fault in it, then it will not bring any kind of negative reactions to you, like as karma, because it's your duty, you must do it. But either way, when you're doing it, remember the spiritual purpose behind life, and then you're pursuing that, but you just do your duty, just do what you need to do and be detached. So now you have to kill, just do it, but be detached, and then because it's your duty now. And so the same goes for anything that we can do. There'll always be some kind of fault in it. Like we're climbing into the car and we're going already, that's a big thing, because now you're climbing into this destructive engine, which is actually caused just to make this car. It required a lot of cheap labor and people suffering and getting the resources, and then by using it, you're polluting the atmosphere, and there's also petrol and all these things involved. So just that itself is actually not a good thing. But because you dedicating your life as much as possible to a spiritual purpose, then it changes the quality of all those things, because they're not being engaged for your own sense gratification and self-aggrandizement anymore. It's actually being engaged for your own spiritual emancipation, which is actually the best service you can render to humanity, is just to actually purify your own consciousness. That's the best thing you can do for anybody, is to purify your own consciousness. And by that, doing that, your association will be like gold for whoever you come across.
So as much as I love the stories of the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna and Arjuna, is, that story in particular is, something personal from you, is that when you move from your meditation and that you are open your eyes and get on with your day, and what is the, in the same fact of what you were just illustrating with the Bhagavad Gita, what is it that you're applying in the moment that's personal about your service? What is your value?
My value is that I want to do something, because I meditate on creation as Krishna, because that's the particular path that I'm in. And my meditation is, or my value is that everything is intended for his pleasure. And in that way, I'm just trying to act accordingly and just trying to engage myself and the environment and materials and resources around me for that purpose. And I can do it in a way that suits my nature.
How do you define, so I think you're starting to answer it, but how do you define what I would call a righteous, trying to do your best of being you and do the best in a spiritual manner? How do you go about that? How do you define your, what is your nature and what isn't? That's probably not a bad question.
Yeah, some people actually struggle to find out what their nature is. It's something that requires a lot of reflection, I think, and can take many years for many people to actually figure that out. And it's an ongoing process also, because nature can change gradually over time. It usually doesn't change drastically. Usually it's something that changes slowly over time. So then something that might suit you now might not suit in 20 years time. Even just between being 30 and 60, just your body reacts differently to things, So there's that too.
Yeah.
So it requires a lot of reflection and being honest with yourself, and really looking at yourself and thinking about, am I satisfied with the situation or what I'm doing? But also balancing that with, am I being unreasonable with my expectations of what I need to satisfy myself? Because you might be unreasonable with that. Like, no, I want to have 5 million in the bank account. That's my nature. That's a mental construct. For some people, working with a lot of money is their nature. But also, if it's your nature, it will also come with it not a lot of endeavor either. I think that's also a key element. If it comes without endeavoring too much, then it's according to your nature. But if you're really struggling to do something, then you might question yourself, is this actually for me? Or am I trying to follow somebody else's nature instead? Maybe I saw something on TV and it looked really cool to me. Now I'm trying to imitate that. And I've adopted it as my own nature, but actually it's not. That also can happen. Yes. So by reflection, one can decipher these kind of things.
Do you have an example of what is your nature? What have you discovered about your nature in this way?
Yes. for
Yeah.
my personal nature is I love teaching. I'm just a teacher by nature. I can sit in front of a big crowd or one-on-one without even preparing a class, and I can speak on the subject matter. Um,
Yes.
I'm a nature person. I don't like living in urban environments, in cities, even towns. I want to live in the farm, in the forest, um,
Mm.
and like grow my own food and have a cow that I can take care of. That's also my nature. It's also my nature to not do one thing all the time, even though I can do it if it's required. I like to have a number of certain things which I can oscillate between and do a little bit work
Yes.
on my music because I'm a musician also. That's also my nature. So I can work on my music.
Yes.
I can study some Vedic scriptures. I do some teaching. I deal with the children. I do some writing. So then that's nice for me. That's my nature. Other people, they like to have one thing and they just do that every single day. And so that's
Yeah.
not my nature. That's not my nature.
That's
My
not my
nature is
nature.
also I tend to get angry very quickly and unnecessarily. I'm an intense person, so I can go from being very relaxed to very extreme and back, and which is something that actually requires work. It's something I'm actually actively working on
Yes.
now to kind of
I
tone
didn't
it
know
down a
that
little
about
bit.
you.
Yeah. I
Oh
asked
my
my
God.
wife and my kids.
Yeah. I'm an intense person. I'm easy to anger and easy to forgive. And it's, I need to manage it a little bit, because it's not, just because it's my nature doesn't mean it's necessarily
Acceptable.
always the right thing to do.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So these are
Okay. So
some
back to the
elements of my
question.
nature. Yeah. All right.
Back to the question of that. So in between our meditations and when our energy, where does our energy naturally go in between meditations? And that you are in these unusual times where you have a lot more time on your hands. You're noticing that because you have less action and less things you have to do, then there's some distraction that you're seeking and some lethargy that you're experiencing. And when you feel that I'll call it divine discontent, when people feel that there is that they're not enjoying their experience,
Yeah.
that there becomes a point where you need to do something about it.
Hmm.
So what is it that you're going to do differently now? Or what's your intentions anyway?
Ah.
What are you working on?
Yeah. What I would start is assessing my values and belief system, and and seeing that I'm acting in a certain way because of certain values and beliefs I have accepted. For example, if my child, I don't know, recently he's just developed this habit of just going like all the time, and he like spits and he's not necessarily conscious of it. So initially, I used to get very angry about this. I used to kind of raise my voice and become upset. And when I was thinking about it and thinking first, realizing that this isn't helping, it's not going to make him change. You can't force him to change. So I might as well just
Yeah.
change the way that I see it. So then I saw that I accepted that it is okay for me to react like this when he does that. That was my value, my belief
Yes.
agreement I made with myself. And then all I had to do is change that, saying that, okay, it's not okay to react like this when he does that. And that was a powerful step, just doing that consciously and what do you call it, reinforcing that to myself. Just that already changed a lot. So when he came and he did that, this kind of momentum of how I usually respond came up. But then also my value came, like, this is not aligned with my value now because I've changed that value, and then it actually helped me to stop it.
Well, yeah, I think it's a
Yeah,
really good example of when my energy changes. I think that there's a lot of hidden values that people hold on to and that I hold on to, in the sense that when people act a particular way in the world, I'm justified in reacting to it negatively
yes,
because it's not okay.
yeah,
And I end up putting out negative energy for me. I'm disconnected from myself. I've taken myself out of my happy place and my flow, and my connection to all that is, because I decided to be bothered. My value is that I get to be bothered by something that somebody else is doing that's not appropriate or okay. And really being able to look at that's one of the things that lowers my energy in between my meditation places
Yeah.
is these hidden values of that it's not okay. Don't do this and don't do that. And you know, an example would be is one of my bigger triggers is when people when are shaming. If somebody's shaming somebody else and I'm watching it,
Ah.
let alone if they try that with me. But if I'm watching it, I'm justified in getting involved. I'm annoyed by it just by seeing it and feeling it and watching it, and it changes my energy. I'm justified in having it upset me, and that I often will take action depending on the circumstance and reflecting back to somebody that it is inappropriate behavior, and all of it is just from such a lower frequency of energy. I could still have the same value and still be able to value in that I would like to shift people not shaming one another or themselves. I'm less upset if they're shaming themselves. I'm not upset, but I'm like, you know, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. I can be a little bit more in service. But when they're doing it to somebody else and that they have an intention, like there's one thing when they think they're justified. It's yet another thing when people are shaming somebody just to put them on their back foot, you know, and that even annoys me more. And I think that I can still do that from a wise and a higher frequency
Yeah,
place,
yeah, yeah.
and accepting that it's part of what human beings do, and then reflecting back to them, you know, is that really what we want to be doing without changing my energy all over the place?
Exactly, exactly.
Does that bring up anything for you?
Yeah, that's a very positive way of addressing these like energy drops that you experience, you know, when you leave your meditation, is that where you're actually now changing your values to suit the state that you are in, that you want to have when you meditate, and that you actually
Oh,
life is actually helping you find these values that are not in alignment with your highest good, which you which you tap into when you meditate, and they're going to come back again and again and again and again until you either stop to change those values to be in alignment with your highest good, or you're going to give up your pursuit of pursuing your highest good.
you know, the
That's the alternative.
in the pursuit of the highest good is I'm still working on these things. So there's a bunch of things that I'm still doing. I don't see people shaming one another on a regular basis, so I don't get a lot of practice with that one.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing is that it's not my natural state. Like there's other things that I'm doing where I let my frequency fall based on what other people are doing, and I'm protecting myself. I what I lead with why I'm not doing service and not coming from service and not keeping my frequency high is that I'm protecting myself from people behaving badly, and that I want to catch them behaving badly from a place of annoyance and not let them get away with that behavior to others or myself. And all of it happens from a lower frequency, even starting with the value of that I need to protect myself. Um, so being able to know that that's one of the drivers is that that I just naturally go to, as opposed to that's where the intervention is in being able to go, instead of protecting myself from how the world works and what people do for whatever reason, is displacing that automatic value with service, and keeping my energy at the highest good, and being able to be of service to people, and not lower my energy. I'm not even some of those. I'm not even on the playing field yet. I'm only getting there now with what I'm noticing now, because I asked myself, what am I doing instead is protecting myself. Does that bring up anything for you?
It's a gradual process. You have to be dedicated to it, and every day you have to put in the work. And over long, sometimes you can go through months without seeing improvement because the improvement is not perceivable by us yet. But then one day you just like make a quantum leap and you just see the fruits of all that endeavor and austerity. So it's definitely worth it. And once you just tolerate the inconveniences, which are actually just our creations because of what we've done in our past, journey in this universe. And
Sure.
that we've created these certain mindsets and values and stuff for ourselves, and now we're just having to fix the mess that we've made for ourselves. And it's a
Yeah.
glorious path to
Becoming
take on.
conscious to be able to see them, to notice the values that I'm actually employing in any given moment. Being able to also recognize that it's a lower frequency and not the highest good, because I don't think I'm different than most people, that I'm protecting myself from what I've decided are bad behaviors, and then being able to create that intervention moving forward, putting in the work in going, no, this is my greater truth now. I have an automatic truth, and that I have to displace that with an intervention, and it's a conscious intervention
Yeah.
of, this is my new truth and guiding principle that I need to remember in the moment, that when I'm not doing that, what my truth actually is. And then just keep being conscious, keep noticing when I'm not doing that, and then just keep putting in the correction. And eventually, with all the other ones that I've done, over time, you get good at it, and then you get really good at it, and then it becomes a motor skill, and it's like you forget that you even did it in the first place. Often, sometimes it's some are more of a struggle than others, but this is one that I haven't employed all the way across my life. There's places in my everyday life that my frequency is much lower because of these values in between my meditations.
Yeah, that's really nice. It's well said. We're at 31 minutes now.
Yes.
I think that was a nice.
So having said that, any closing thoughts in regards to being able to be conscious to and practices to raise our energy in between our meditations when we realize that our energy is we're allowing it to lower?
Mhm.
Any other insights at all across the board in that action?
Okay. So in addition to like reflection and stuff that we've discussed, it's also very much just focus on putting the positive in. And then that by just putting the positive in, automatically the negative will be expelled. Like if you have a glass of poison and you just pour fresh water in it, and you keep pouring water in it, and you're just focusing on putting purity in, then eventually you end up with a glass of pure water. You didn't even think about taking the poison out. So I like that, because it's a very positive approach of dealing with negative things within ourselves. Focus on adding in the positivity, and part of that is also acknowledging the negativity, of course, but don't be overburdened by that. Just focus on the good and adding in more good. It'll help you
That's a
stay
beautiful
inspired.
analogy, by the way.
Thanks.
Beautiful analogy. I love your analogies. You have quite a arsenal of really simple analogies that tell a story and a practice quite well. I appreciate that.
I have a great teacher.
Beautiful. Thank you, Briat, for yet
Thank you
another
also.
day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow it is. Bye. Hari Om Tat Sat.
It's 11 light, my friend.